Good morning and welcome to the Indy Boomer Show. I'm Mary Pat McKee, and this morning I'm sitting here with Anne Poindexter, who is a managing partner at Campbell Kyle Proffitt. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Before we get started, a couple things we want to do. First of all, we always want to thank Jim Wofford Theater, and the Logan Street Signs and Banners for allowing us to have this show, and we are very appreciative of that. Want to talk a little bit, as you can see on the screen, the Indy Boomer January issue of Indy Boomer Magazine with Bob and Tom on the cover. That you can pick up at any, or I should say most, Kroger and Marsh stores, if I could talk this morning. Most Kroger and Marsh stores in Marion and the surrounding counties, you can pick one of those up. We are working right now on the March issue, which we are very excited about. And you know what is new, and I bet you don't know this. We are going to insert 5,000 copies into the Current and Carmel for the March issue. So they will be going in directly into some folks' homes, tried to pick routes where there's 45 to 65-year-olds in there. And anyway, so more and more people will be able to read and enjoy the Indy Boomer magazine. Anne Poindexter is here, as I said, from Campbell Kyle Proffitt. She writes a lovely, and you've been with us for 4 years at least, I think, 3 or 4 years.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Time flies when you're having fun. Anyway, she writes our legal concerns page, and I have had numerous people over the years come to me and say that was really good information. They learned a lot from it, and then were able to follow through and move forward. Anne has a really great topic for us this morning, and I'm going to kind of step away and let you go. It is about premarital agreements.
Correct. Or, as people have said for years, prenuptial agreements.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
That's what we used to say for a long time, but the trend has been to get lawyers talking in a little bit more plain speak. Mm-hmm. So now we try and say
words that people know.
Right. Premarital agreements, because that sounds a little more plain speak, doesn't it?
It does to me. I know what it means.
So, why do I want to talk to boomers about premarital agreements?
That's what I asked her when she said this.
Yeah.
And why do we?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, I want everybody to stop thinking about it as some taboo or yucky topic. And I want people to quit thinking about it in terms of, oh, it's only about, you're protecting in case people get divorced. That is an important point or part of a premarital agreement, and I'm not going to dispute that. But for boomers, and here's a point, for boomers and their parents,
which surprises me, yes.
Yes, but this is really fun.
Yes.
For boomers and their parents, what I'm seeing is that the second part of a premarital agreement, what we do the majority of the time, is we cover the possibility that a couple could get divorced, or the possibility that one of the spouses dies. So the second part of a premarital agreement is estate planning.
Sure.
And here is what I am seeing. So I'm seeing a fair number of boomers getting remarried.
Sure.
And in that case, we've got kids, and we've accumulated some assets, even if they're just retirement assets.
Right.
And some assets that we've set aside maybe to send kids to college.
Right. Grandchildren.
Or grandchildren.
Right.
And then we've got our parents who've moved into retirement communities who are finding the latest loves of their lives and getting remarried.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm seeing the latest round and need for these premarital agreements.
Is with our parents?
Is with our parents.
Okay,
that's
interesting.
Here's why. Everybody says, well, okay, but they've each got their wills. And I'm here to tell you that's good.
Yes.
But not good enough.
Right.
Because when two people get married, under the law, spouses automatically acquire certain rights that a will does not give you the total protection for.
So because you're married, that spouse, if you passed away, would have more rights than what the will states?
Correct.
Okay.
And here's one great example. retirement assets. If one of the spouses has a classic pension plan, a good old pension plan, and there's still some of those around there, particularly for our parents.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So a classic pension plan that is a qualified pension plan, then under the federal laws, a spouse is the primary beneficiary of that pension plan.
Right.
So once they get married, the spouse is now the beneficiary of that pension plan under federal law.
Wow.
Wow, indeed.
Okay, let me just back up for 1 second. So say you were married and your husband had a pension plan from, let's say, Ford or someplace like that, and usually those are very nice pensions, right? And then that person passed away, your spouse passed away, and you remarried. So the person you remarried now has access to that?
No.
Okay, I
no,
misunderstood.
not to your spouse's pension plan.
Okay.
So, and let's start using names, and maybe that'll make
help.
it clearer.
Yeah.
So, if Dad's own pension plan, and if it, has some death benefits to it that the kids think that they're going to receive, but Dad remarries in the retirement community,
Okay.
Dad's new wife is going to automatically receive some status in that pension plan,
Okay.
depending on how the plan is written, under federal law. And people don't...
So it's federal, not just state.
Right, it's federal law if it's
Okay.
a qualified plan. So that's one issue that crops up.
That person that they married in the who Dad married in the retirement community could supersede those children that were written in to receive it. Gotcha.
Yes.
See, talk to me like because I don't know, because I really am.
And people don't know. People don't know. I mean, that's part of the problem. And if Dad, writes his will and says that he's not going to give the new spouse anything, and the new spouse says that's fine while they're married, and Dad dies, and the new spouse changes her mind.
She could still go in?
Yes, she can.
Oh, wow.
It's called an election to take against a will.
Election to take against a will.
And a new spouse can file that, or a not so new spouse can file that. A spouse has a right to file an election to take against a will and to share
Do you see
in
that
assets.
happen?
I do see that happen.
Really?
And there are other ways that it can happen. You may be the nicest spouse in the world and you may not file that. But if I'm your child and I'm your guardian and you're running out of your assets,
I would have never thought of that.
and I'm trying to take care of you,
You as
I'm going to file it for you.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking for ways to take care of you. And that's a place where there's money or assets that I can legally
Get to
take care of you.
Wow. You know what? We're going to have to take a break. But one thing I think it shows, Anne, and we'll continue on this in the next segment, is that you have to get an expert on anything you do when it has to do with legal things or money, because there's just too many rules. There's too many rules. It's not fair anymore. Used to be simple a little bit. Maybe we should go back to prenuptial instead of premarital. Anyway, hey, give us a couple minutes. We're going to be right back. Thanks.
When Margaret and I decided to sell the old estate here, we had only one choice in signage: Logan Street signs and banners. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore, but rather located on 10th Street on the south side of Noblesville. Well, we sold the old beauty, and we were able to buy this wonderful estate. And we had so much money left over, I was able to buy this beautiful 1968 Eldorado Cadillac for Margaret. Only 472,000 miles. Margaret loves it because it's got those big seats and that heavy-duty suspension to support her svelte frame. Next time you're looking for signs or banners, call old Jim at Logan Street Signs and Banners, 773-7200. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore.
We are back. Welcome back. Mary Pat McKee with Indy Boomer Magazine. I'm sitting here this morning with Anne Poindexter. Good, welcome, Anne.
Thank you.
We are having interesting discussions. As usual, when Anne is here, I'm educated. The one thing, even though she gives me great information, the one thing I always learn is that if I have a question, I go to an expert when it comes to legal matters because I am very confused. And to be honest with you, I'm glad you know it because I couldn't retain all the information. On the break, we were talking about, and this amazes me, you were talking about a survivor's allowance.
Yes.
Tell everybody what that means.
Well, one of the other issues, talking about the estate planning issues and why covering the issue of estate planning is also important in a premarital agreement is because, again, these rights or these bundle of rights that a spouse acquires immediately upon marriage, one of them that people don't know about is what's called a survivor's allowance. And it is a $25,000 allowance. It is for a surviving spouse and or minor children. We've been talking really about boomers and their parents. And we were talking about this fun event, seeing lots of seniors getting remarried in retirement communities. But on the other end, it's for, younger widows or widowers with children. But it's a $25,000 survivor's allowance. So even if...
Does it come straight off the top of the estate? Or?
It's one of the very first things to be paid. It is a preference in an estate.
Okay.
And so again, it's another entitlement, if you will, that a spouse can have that can be waived or can be negotiated in these premarital agreements.
Okay.
One of the benefits of the premarital agreements, or two benefits that I think there are, maybe even three, is number one, when people go see a lawyer, is they learn, or they should learn about these issues. Number two, then people make their own agreements. I don't care if they don't waive all of these things. What I care about is making sure that they know what the law is, and that they make their own deal, whatever that is, after they know what the law is.
Exactly.
But then one of the great benefits, I believe, from a human standpoint is that it is certainly a lot easier for the families to get behind and support these new marriages when all of the kids and grandkids know that there's this premarital agreement, and that they believe it's fair, and that a deal was made, and that assets are protected, and that this is really just about them enjoying each other's company and time, and that neither one is taking advantage financially of the other.
So Grandpa didn't marry a gold digger.
Right. I didn't want to say that. Thank you for
I
saying
did say
it. But yes.
But let me say this to you too, though. I think there's a bad stigma with the word, and you already referenced it, prenuptial agreements, premarital agreements. It's a bad stigma because people would always say, at least in the old days, they would say, oh, they don't love me because they want this premarital agreement. I think that people need to take that seriously.
And that's why I said in the beginning, I want people to get over that.
Yeah.
I want people to look at them positively for the benefits that they can have. And I want people to think about them again, I attach that stigma to the divorce side of it,
Right.
which is where I think it was coming from.
Yes, I agree.
And think about this side of it, the value that they have in the estate planning
Yes.
area.
Well, it helps both sides.
And
it's
it
not just a
does.
one-sided
It
gift.
does.
Yes. And I think it's better to have all your cards on the table than someone passes away and then, oh, that's just a mess.
Yes.
As I'm sure you've dealt
Yeah.
with on many, many occasions.
Yeah.
Talk to us about this guardianship.
Preferences.
Yes.
Yes.
Tell me about
Yes.
that.
You can do a variety of things in premarital agreements, and I want to make sure that we're clear too that we can cover, and most times we do cover both sides of it, the death and the divorce. But depending on what people do, if we're really focusing on the estate planning side of it, if they're not going to have a whole multitude of documents, then we can go ahead and throw into the premarital agreement a clause that acknowledges that that the new spouse is not going to have a preference as a guardian. Because again,
Meaning
well,
exactly?
again, this bundle of rights
Okay.
that a spouse acquires immediately upon marriage,
Uh-huh.
the law says that, when you're married, you're one of the preferences or priorities to
Right.
be appointed as the guardian for your spouse.
You would think that would be a given.
Well, but maybe that's not what you want.
How so? I mean, I guess, can you give me an example?
Sure. Maybe when you're getting remarried and you're 88, each of you,
Yes.
it's not necessarily the best idea in the world for another 88 or then 89 or 90-year-old to be your guardian.
Oh, good point. I
think-
gotcha.
think about it.
That makes sense. That
And
makes sense,
so
yeah.
we can say in the document that the new spouse will not be considered as a guardian and
Okay.
relinquishes any consideration and supports that the other spouse's adult child will be appointed. We can acknowledge those things ahead of time.
Okay.
So that if it comes at a point that is very emotional, when dad needs to be put under guardianship,
Right.
when they're later married.
Right.
At that emotional time, we're not going to the spouse saying, I'd like you to sign this consent now, saying that I can be the
Yeah,
guardian.
I could
At that later emotional time.
Right.
Having it done ahead of time in a more peaceful setting, getting that accomplished.
And again, because of my ignorance, I ask this. So if let's say like my mother got married, and my brother is her PO or power of attorney. So if she got married, would he still be her power of attorney or as her guardian? Do you see what I mean? Okay.
He is still her power of attorney.
Okay.
And, that's why I said sometimes there are additional documents and sometimes there are not.
Okay.
And most powers of attorney include within the document a nomination of a guardian.
Okay.
And so I bet in that power of attorney it already includes a nomination of a guardian.
Okay.
If there is not a power of attorney, then this premarital agreement is another place
To put that in.
to put that in there and to put the consent of the new soon-to-be spouse.
Well,
These are just additional opportunities. We've talked before that there are multiple ways and different documents that can be used for estate planning purposes.
Right.
This is one more document, but an important document, particularly when we're talking about seniors.
One quick question, and then I know we got to wrap it up. But this guardianship preference is not the same as a power of attorney, correct?
Correct. It is
Okay.
not.
Okay. All right. As you can see, she, as usual, has made many more questions in my mind than what I had before you got here. So again, seriously, if your parents are considering, or even if you're a baby boomer and you're considering, it is worth your time and effort to go to an expert and ask them about these premarital agreements and that kind of information. We would like it very much if you would go to Anne Poindexter and ask her these questions. But if not, you've still got good information and content by which to go with. And we're going to have to wrap it up real quick before we go. Indy Boomer Magazine. Pick it up at most Kroger and Mars stores in Marion and surrounding counties. The March issue will be out before you know it. And also on Sunday mornings, tune in to Boomer TV on Channel 8 Wish TV at 10:30 on Sunday mornings and watch Boomer TV and enjoy a show. So, Anne, thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Always my pleasure, and we'll see her back here soon. Take care.